Welcome to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast, where we talk to IT marketing leaders about how to drive more sales. Hosted by Carlos Corredor, founder of Condor, an Inc. 5000 company and one of the fastest growing IT marketing agencies in the US.
3, 2, 1, 0.
And this episode is brought to you by Condor Digital Marketing Agency. Most mid-market B2B and tech services companies struggle to drive sales, overwhelmed by long sales cycles and an elusive audience. Condor helps you measure and generate qualified opportunities, make the most with your budget, and be recognized as a revenue driver instead of a cost center. You can learn more at condoragency.com. And today we want to welcome Scott McCollum. He is the director of product marketing at Blue Mantis, which is a security-first IT solutions provider for mid to large enterprise that are based in the US, particularly in New Hampshire. And Scott has more than 20 years of experience in the tech services industry, and including more than a decade in product marketing. At his current role in Blue Mantis, which is, I'll let Scott talk more about that, but the point is that he has a great intersection of experience in product marketing, in tech services, in AI, and in security and the infrastructure for that, right? So, without, getting into more spoilers, we'll be talking a little bit about that. But first, I want to make sure that those intros were accurate, or if not, you can expand on them, Scott, your background and Blue Mantis as well.
Yeah, I think that was a great intro. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate it. And yeah, Blue Mantis is a security-first IT solutions provider. I've been there for about 3 years now. Came from Masergy after they got purchased for around $1 billion a few years ago by Comcast Business. And they were also a cybersecurity provider. They were kind of more on the networking side. And before that, I was at Microsoft for about 9 years up in Redmond. I'm Dallas-based now, but up in Redmond, Washington at the headquarters. So it's been an exciting time. And I think that a lot of what Blue Mantis does right now to service the underserved market of, just like what the podcast kind of goes after, those mid-market enterprises, it's something that they're hungering for. The kind of services that we do. And I think that what your podcast is doing is really great to go after those. It's a market that we're going after as well.
Yeah, because we were talking about how, large enterprises, they even have sometimes, an IT security committees or departments that are overseeing marketing and are giving them all the guidelines. But then more on the mid-market sector, we're talking about like a 5 to 10 people marketing department, companies of anywhere between, let's say, $50 million in revenue to, let's say, even $1 billion in revenue, right? They are figuring it out by themselves, right? I admittedly consider myself on the relaxed range, right? More probably than I should be. And I always, kind of justify myself. It's like, oh, you know what? I have more important problems or more urgent things, but it's a lot of, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I leave it all to, well, we use Google Suite and that has 2-step security authentication and whatever, Slack provides. And that's essentially all the security that we have used. But then, and I'm sure a lot of companies have the same challenge, right, of this size that we're discussing. But why don't you walk us through that, right? Where should they start, and how can they start, thinking, or how big is the challenge in the first place?
I think there is a challenge in the mid-market, marketing to a mid-market enterprise from the standpoint of just what you said. They have between 50 million to $1 billion. That's a huge range. And when you get in the lower end of that, you're going to have maybe a CIO, maybe a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, along with Chief Information Officer, and that could be all. But when you get up closer to that $1 billion annual revenue, Now you're going to have them probably split up into CIO, CISO, maybe even a chief data officer. You may have, lots of, so the C-suite buying committee gets to be a little larger, because then you may also have VP of IT and a director of IT that reports to that VP of IT. So now you're having to market to not just that C-suite, and this is something that maybe I think that Blue Mantis is not unique in this tactic, but we try and go after that C-suite buyer because they do have final authority when it comes to a lot of the budgeting for buying. So we do lots of, like I said, we have cybersecurity, we have networking, we have a modern workspace practice that sells Microsoft 365 and the laptops that they go on. Like all these, we're sort of a one-stop shop for all things IT, but we do focus on lots of things that are built on the zero trust framework, so it all kind of works together, but it's also very secure. When you're talking to a C-suite buyer on that, what they want to know from a marketing standpoint is, how will buying this solution from you help my business be more profitable, be more productive? Anything that starts with a P. Now, but it's something that is very different than that person who is the director of IT. If you're going after that director of IT person, they're going to want to know what the speeds and feeds are, a lot of the technical aspects of it, because they're down in it. They want to know how it's going to make their life easier to do their job. They can then influence, they'll kind of go up the ladder on that, talking to the VP, talking to the CIO, and make that decision. So you kind of have to be really good if you're marketing towards who your audience is, and you want to be able to segment them and make sure that you have these things that are built for the audience that you're going after. And I think one good way of doing that is not only putting together kind of the research behind what your target personas are. Are you going after the C-suite? Are you going after that influencer down the ladder, or are you going somewhere in between, sort of a mid-level manager or VP executive? By doing that, then you're able to much better customize the content, because it's all about content, and getting it out there. I think what you do with your podcast is really good, because there's lots of people that are commuting to work or listening to something in the morning as they're getting ready to go to work. And this is a good way to get the message out to them. And I think you do a great job of that.
Thanks, Scott. And then, so you're mentioning essentially that's advice on how to start targeting and how to create valuable content, and the importance of having well-defined personas, and then the messaging for each, right? Which again, probably the manager and director is a little more technical, and then the VP and the C-suite is more strategic and focused on.
Yes, very strategic, very kind of business oriented. And a lot of what I do as product marketing manager is coming up with those messages and messaging frameworks to kind of go to market and figure out, who are we talking to? What do they want? How do we deliver that? And making sure that that's in a well-rounded, compelling message.
And in terms of security vulnerabilities,
Mhm.
From the marketing department infrastructure, and especially now that marketing departments are trying to store their own data, to leverage it with AI, right? Like, what's your advice there? What challenges are you seeing, and how are people leveraging either your technology or any advice in general that you have? So again, for those marketing departments that maybe don't have such a rigid, or not rigid, but like ample support and guidelines from IT, but they have to figure it out by themselves. Like what can they do, right? So they are relatively covered, or they diminish at least the biggest risk.
Oh, that's a great question. One of the things that's kind of interesting about Blue Mantis is, just when I joined about 3 years ago, we went through a whole rebranding exercise. It was originally, the company when I was hired was called Green Pages. And then we rebranded to Blue Mantis. And I don't want to bore you with that whole story, but it was a really nice case study to see how we all kind of came together with different vendors, et cetera. Where I'm going with this is that since then, we've kind of really upped our game in terms of the tech stack that we use in our marketing department. It was really kind of on the low end before, very kind of SMB focused. Now we've moved into using Adobe Marketo. We have a dedicated digital marketing manager, and she's really great, Monica, that does a lot of this work in Marketo. That, of course, is tied into Salesforce. We didn't have Salesforce before. So you have to get all of that kind of put together so that it can be that kind of content delivery machine that's trackable, because of course executives love dashboards and tracking, and you want to know how well you're doing. So from a security side, we really had to think through, like, where are the data repositories? How long do we keep them? What's the governance for that data? Who can see what, et cetera? And how do they all kind of communicate with each other? What really, I don't want to say threw a wrench in the machine, but what made a lot of this really made us very cognizant of where everything was going and how we were using it in terms of data and marketing was the introduction of generative AI. So we got into generative AI maybe about a year, 18 months ago. We piloted Microsoft Copilot. That was great for using generative AI. But when you're doing that and it's the kind of public version of Copilot, immediately our CISO and the COO and all of those top level people that are very cybersecurity focused, because that's a big part of what we do at Blue Mantis, said, hold on, we really need to get a handle on where this data is going and who can see it. To that end, what we ended up doing actually is putting together our own version of Copilot that runs internally at Blue Mantis, keeps all of the data inside, and it's called Mantis Chat. It has to be Mantis related. So Mantis Chat does a lot of the generative AI that we would have done in, say, a Copilot or a Gemini AI if you're in the Google ecosystem. We're obviously more in the Microsoft ecosystem, or even outside of that, the OpenAI ChatGPT. Nobody in our organization, credit card swipes and gets a subscription to ChatGPT and starts typing in things. How would you market to a CISO in the Pacific Northwest about X? Like I said, nobody does that because it all goes through our internal chat. This is also something that's kind of interesting because the learnings that we took from putting that together internally, we could now sort of productize that so that we can deliver that to a marketing department or any other department. It's not necessarily only related to marketing generative AI. It can be for lots of different things in your organization that we can put it together. You don't have to call it Mantis Chat when it's at your business, though. Like we let you white label it to whatever you want. And it's really pretty powerful. So we're still early in on it. So I don't have any kind of metrics that I could say, oh, we saved X amount of hours or dollars on anything. But I mean, when you're using it, you go, this is really pretty cool.
Because the difference is that, well, besides the security, right, which, and I think for people that don't know, at least right now, most systems, the input data when you're chatting, for example, ChatGPT, I think it's maybe one that's more commonly used, right? And if for example, we are a digital marketing agency, and let's say, I don't know, we put their information about who our main clients are, and that information you have no control, and that immediately becomes public information potentially, right? It's not like
yes,
publishing every single chat, but like they could then they use that intelligence in other searches, or they could use that in other searches. So that's really, is it fair to say that that's the main concern in terms of like when you are talking to ChatGPT about your company?
Absolutely. One of the things that was the scariest sort of aspects of even the paid Chat GPT model that we were piloting along with Copilot and all of that early on was the fact that it would ask you, do you want to upload something from Microsoft OneDrive, from Google Drive, a PDF? Don't worry. OpenAI won't use this for training or anything. We'll keep it safe. But if you looked through the terms and conditions, it was like, hey, it may kind of leak out, or we may use it to train something. We'll try our best to anonymize it, but absolutely not. Yeah, like that was one of the things we were like, no, that's part of the reason why we had to build something internally, because you can't have the, hey, maybe it leaks, maybe it won't. Like, what if you are that $1 billion a year finance company? You've got tons of or a law firm, and you've got all of this data. You can't let that get out. So that's something that when you start talking about governance and data security, that's a big part of any marketing agency or marketing department inside a larger firm that is going to be using generative AI. And I don't care what it is. You can use Chat GPT, I don't care, but you have to be aware of those limitations or risks, maybe not even limitations, just say risks associated with that. And if you can somehow get it privatized in some way where it's only using your data and it's only inside of a predefined perimeter. And there's lots of ways you can do this. We have an option at Blue Mantis where you can do private AI in essentially like a Kubernetes cluster. It keeps it all in there. So if you still want to run in AWS or Azure or something like that, it can be walled off in a Kubernetes cluster. Or if you want to put it in the cluster for a while and use all those super expensive NVIDIA GPUs that are available in those big public clouds, but you don't want to pay for that over and over again because you've already kind of trained your model, you could bring it down on-prem to a server. We sell those too, and we can set all of that stuff up for you. So it's something where if you don't have that already sort of percolating in your mind, you should, because the data leakage is going to be a real problem, and you don't want to get sued over that.
And it sounds like you worked at Microsoft, and you're using the Microsoft infrastructure both internally and as a provider as well.
Yes, sir.
How do you compare that one? Do you recommend that one for a mid-market sector? How does it compare to perhaps Google, which I think, or even OpenAI?
I think when you start looking at the majors, you look at OpenAI and ChatGPT. A lot of that is on Microsoft Azure already. So great. I think that's fine. It scales really well. The Microsoft Copilot, obviously, that's on Azure, and fine. When you start talking about Google Gemini and it's on Google Cloud, this is no secret that Google is kind of third place in a lot of if you start looking at between Microsoft, Amazon, and Google Cloud's going to be third place. They almost give away Google Cloud stuff because they're trying to win market share. If you're already invested in where I'm going with this is whatever ecosystem you're invested in, stick with it, because you're probably going to get the best rate of return, best experience with whatever you're already in. If you're in the Microsoft ecosystem and you, for whatever reason, think, well, we want to try Google Gemini, don't. But if you're already in, Google Workspace and you got Google Cloud for whatever, and they say, hey, we'll give you some, credits or tokens for Gemini, do it, because it's probably going to work out best for you. And all of these models now, the large language models that are behind each of those majors are all really pretty good. I haven't used it that much, but even the open source models that Meta, Facebook, whatever we're supposed to call them now, has put together, the Olama, hey, it's pretty good. So do whatever is best for your system. I think from a pricing standpoint, I don't really have a good view of a lot of that, but I think again, from an ecosystem standpoint, whatever you're already invested in and most comfortable with should definitely stick with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great advice, and I think not only great advice, but one that I think will keep a lot of people calm, because the last thing they want to do is change ecosystems just to, let's say, I don't know, for marketing and for infrastructure security. Marketing is way better. Do that. So everybody, I don't know if it's 50% or 20%, whatever, of people that are listening, I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to switch. I think good to hear. Any advice before we move to like some of the maybe like how you guys are leveraging generally for marketing purposes, but any from a security standpoint, any other advice?
No, I think as long as your understanding of what data is coming in and out of that AI front end that you're using, you should be good. And you need to obviously, if you're someone in marketing, you may have we have a lean IT team here at Blue Mantis, where it's 5 of us. So if you're in similar size, but you're wanting to have that sort of AI force multiplier, which is really good, like you should be using it. Just get with your IT team to make sure that you have the whole kind of where the data is going and what's going in, what's going out, et cetera. Because if you just credit card swipe and get a Chat GPT subscription and start making it, I don't know, generate emails, you're probably going to get sued. You don't get sued. It's maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but it is a danger, and you definitely. And one point I do want to make before we move on to the next subject about that AI as a force multiplier for marketing. It absolutely is, and there's lots of different ways that you can learn more about how to really effectively use AI. It's definitely not what we're going to discuss here from the podcast standpoint, but as a marketeer, you should be looking at the AI tools that are available to you and trying to figure out how to use them well, because this AI thing is not going to go away. It is not a hula hoop or some other weird fad that will go away in like 3 or 4 years. If anything, in 3 or 4 years, it's going to be even more useful. And what it really does now really well is those low-level marketing jobs. Mm-hmm. So I feel sorry for people that are kind of junior grade marketing people that don't have a good grasp on what AI can do, because you're probably going to have your job eliminated by AI. And that's a shame. I hate that, because I think people should be able to get in on the ground floor and work their way up. But unfortunately, a lot of that's going to go away because of generative AI. But I would also say to anyone that's a journeyman level, mid-level kind of person, like I would consider myself, you got to understand what AI can do and how it can make you a better marketeer as well, because you're going to get eliminated by someone who does know how to use the AI better than you. So you can't be a Luddite when it comes to the AI now. You have to be able to use it and use it to your advantage.
No, I completely agree. A lot of people don't like to say it. I think everyone knows it. I think a lot of folks don't like to admit it or say it. But for example, we're a digital marketing agency, and we eliminated our internship program, which, by the way, had been very successful. And I think most of our current team, or a lot of them, I don't know exactly more than 50% or not, but like a lot. I mean, for us, we loved our internship program. But now, if you have a lot of things being done by an intern, that's probably a red flag that you should be automating that, right? So that's what we are requiring our managers to do, and we don't want them to rely on interns or worry about keeping the interns busy. We want them to spend that time automating that via agents or workflows, as opposed to, again, interns that, they take PTO, they take vacations, they leave, etc. And I'm being very blunt, and I'm talking about ourselves, because I know that's what's happening in a lot of other, not only agencies, but marketing departments. So, and I think the message for younger folks is just, learn how to use the tools, because yes, I said that we eliminated the internship program, but if you're still gonna need people, right, to run your departments and permanent roles, right? And when we're interviewing, if you can demonstrate that you are better than the rest at using AI, whether that's building the infrastructure or using the tools that are out there, you suddenly become not only back into the conversation, but suddenly, number one candidate and invaluable, piece for any team. So I think that's where the opportunity lies.
Oh, I 100% agree with you on that, because your value as an employee coming in and not knowing anything about AI is almost nothing now already. Imagine how bad it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Like, so if you're a parent listening to this and you have a child that's in school, you probably ought to get them some kind of AI training on something, because they're going to need it, because it will be an absolute requirement. One of the things that's kind of interesting about generative AI is that okay, this is going to sound weird, but generative AI eliminates a lot of people who have an artistic, innate ability, a talent, if you want to say. Like, I hate to admit this, but when I was a teenager, I was an actor. But that's it. It was something where I was able to do that. I was just able to do it. It was easy. Like, other people would go, "Oh, I'm all freaked out. I can't imagine talking in front of somebody. Ooh, and this is so scary," like that. And I would just, whatever, give me a piece of paper and I'll read it off, and it sounds natural. There's a lot of people that can do that with writing. There's a lot of people that can do that with art. There's a lot of people, so these are all things that are valued in a marketing department. You're writing copy, you're generating some kind of art that go around that copy, etc. Guess what? AI can do that. And you can just type it in. Somebody that doesn't have any artistic ability at all can just type in, "Make me a one-pager about cybersecurity." And it pops up, and it's in your branding with your fonts and all that stuff that you normally needed a graphic designer for. And it's in your voice, all that stuff you normally needed a copywriter for. Whoops. So now your innate talent, your just God-given ability to do this stuff, I don't want to say is worthless, but it's worth a lot less than it was before. And I think that business people that were managers who were very business focused and maybe didn't have hobbies related to some kind of artistic talent looked at people that had artistic talent and went, "Wow, you're some kind of wizard. Of course we'll hire you." And when they had the budgets to throw bodies at a problem, and they'd hire those talented people because it said they could do it, and they didn't have any kind of artistic ability on their own, they thought, "Yeah, this is great." Now those people understand they can just type something into generative AI and it pops out, and it's really pretty good. So I feel bad again for those people who have been coasting on their God-given talent to be able to draw or to write, because now you're competing with AI, which is really pretty good. So you got to get good at it too.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think especially like if mediocre, not mediocre copy, right? Mediocre copy
Yeah.
no longer a skill. I do think that high quality copywriting and really I'm not even like award winning, but because a lot of times you're not participating in awards, but like great copywriting is still a valuable skill, especially if you can leverage AI, right, to refine it and come
Yes.
with really amazing final copy, right? I think that's still there. And getting into, right, so copywriting, perhaps one of the most powerful use cases today for, for AI in marketing departments. And I bring this up because, moving to like maybe like what's working for you guys as a marketing team, right? Like, how are you leveraging AI, and what do you recommend?
What we use right now, again, we have the internal chat that is based on Copilot AI. We have it trained to a lot of the Blue Mantis messaging, et cetera. That generative AI is used for everything from emails that go to our business development reps talking about some kind of new promotion that we're running, to social media posts. I've used it for some of the messaging, when I'm stuck. I look at the generative AI as sort of a collaborator. It's really good. If I'm stuck on something, I can ask it, hey, what's a good way of saying X, whatever it is. And it comes back and says, well, you could say it this way, that way, the other way. Okay, great. I can probably then use one of those three, kind of sparks my thought to be able to get to go. I think that's really good kind of use case. And I think that's how most of us use it. Again, I'm product marketing. We also have a digital marketing manager. We have someone that does events and demand gen. So there's all different kinds of content that comes out of each of those things. And the generative AI, able to chat and try and get something that is useful to each of those kind of silos within our department is very useful. But it's also something too where, again, we're a relatively lean team. So I don't think anybody really is in a silo that I'm not going to know what Monica's doing, or Nicole's not going to know what Katie's doing. And none of us, we're all like pointing fingers at each other. So we're able to, the great thing about having all of this sort of like networked together is you're able to see what other people are doing. And then that helps you as well, because you're able to sort of collaborate on lots of these things. I don't think we've talked about this, but the company, the Blue Mantis, we have offices mostly in the Northeast. We have some in the Southeast, Florida and all that. I'm actually one of their few 100% remote employees because I'm in Dallas, Texas. But the cool thing about our kind of modern hybrid workplace is that we're able to talk, just like you and I are talking right now, Carlos, through this magic of the internet. We're able to kind of put all of these things together and get everything together, quickly, integrated and put out there in a good, solid message. You need to have that good, solid message to be able to market to your customers.
And how you mentioned, for example, let's say, I think in your case, I think you mentioned 4 different people, right? In creating copy using the internal Mantis chat. How exactly do you make sure that the model is learning from the feedback that the 4 of you are giving it, or is it like based on certain PDF that you're using as a baseline, or like what advice do you have so that, again, so the same infrastructure is, gives everybody this or a very similar output, and that it's learning over time for everyone?
That's a great point, and I probably didn't bring that up earlier, and I should have. The way that we trained that model is that we kind of fed it, probably Blue Mantis, like I said earlier, it was originally a company called Green Pages. Green Pages had been around for 30 years, and it's now in its 32nd year, something like that, as Blue Mantis, but 30 years worth of content that has been available. And that was fed into the large language model, so that you're able to kind of see not only the evolution of of the company, but it's important to kind of have historical context about products, ways we sold, customers we sold to, etc. So the large language model has all of this information that is able to, and one thing that I did as product marketing manager is I have a templatized sort of go-to-market messaging framework that we use for all of the 11 practices that we have inside the company to sell whatever it is, cybersecurity, cloud, modern workspace, networking, unified communications, our advisory services, data enablement, all of these things. We have a go-to-market messaging framework for each of them. And that went into the system. So once you train the system on that, it's able to say, oh, okay, I understand that you're writing something about the cloud practice. I know this is the go-to-market messaging framework related to the cloud practice. What would you like me to generate? Say, hey, I want a social media post about using private AI Kubernetes on Amazon work, AWS cloud. It says, great, I know exactly what that is because of all of the correlation that's already done through everything that we've already fed into it. So it's really pretty effective. I mean, I'm not going to say that I can use that prompt and it comes out with something that is fantastic, 100% of the time, but it's usually 90% of the way there, and it's really pretty good. Very rarely do I ever have to say, no, try again. And this is an interesting question for you. When you're talking to the AI, do you say please and thank you? Do you say good job, AI?
I do. I've heard and I've read that sometimes it helps, right? So like, all right, yeah, I have nothing to lose. I don't know, maybe I think it also kind of makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah. You want to be nice to it, like, yeah, like you said, maybe it helps. It's probably better.
Oh, but now I don't remember. I think it was, and by the way, since talking about this, is the Marketing AI Institute. It's great for
Oh yeah.
be on the forefront of how AI is evolving and how to use it and how to leverage it. But I think that's where I heard that, if you say those subtle things, the models, I don't know, they especially if you say, I think they remember that, especially when you say that's great, thank you, they understand that it was valuable, right? That whatever approach they had was valuable. So they do a little more of that. So, it's not I go, too much out of my way, but I do, try to be, try to tell them, thank you, or use exclamation points when something's really good. Just,
Good. Yeah. See, I mean, I'm just, being from the American South, you want to be more polite anyway, so I was kind of used to that. But I've recently started to look into more of not only the AI stuff, but robotics. And one of the things that I've been reading about with robots is that they have a training that's like reinforcement training. They try and ask it to pick up the mug and move it over here. And, if it does it well, they say good. So that's a reinforcement for the robot that it did well and it should do that again. If it does something wrong, if it walks into a wall, they say bad, don't do that. So now it knows not to do that. But when it avoids the wall, they tell it good. Reinforcement. And again, trying to be polite. You should be polite to the robot because that way it won't turn into a Terminator and kill you.
lose us. Also, say something. Somebody said that they're talking about scientific, but it's like, yeah, you should believe in God because even if there's only 5% chance that let's say you believe it's only 5% chance that he exists, when you die,
yeah.
You have nothing to lose. So kind of the same thing when you're talking to AI. It's like you don't have much to lose, right? So try to be polite and nice.
That's the it's Pascal's wager, right? Blaise Pascal's, yeah. Hey, what do you got to lose? Even if you said there's that chance. Hey, he's a mathematician. Like, I get it. He's
value,
he put a that's funny.
before we wrap up, I want to make sure that anything else, that you want to share that you think people find valuable. Maybe I didn't get the chance to ask, or we deviate a little bit to another subject, but anything else that you feel that you want to share?
I mean, I hope that people are watching this podcast, not just listening to it, because Carlos is basically the Latino Bradley Cooper, just a very handsome guy. But no, this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, if you want to learn more about, Blue Mantis, obviously bluemantis.com, we've got everything there. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm, the real Scott McCollum on LinkedIn. But, I'll, love to hear from you. Tell me you heard me on the Tailwind podcast.
Awesome, Scott. Great to have you, and thanks so much.
Yeah, glad to do it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe for future episodes. Until next time.